Joining me now is the West Bloomfield Township Clerk, Debbie Binder, with us again on the MegaCast. Debbie, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Tyler. Always good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So at the end of last year, just near the end of the year, the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission had completed its new congressional districts for the state of Michigan, both for federal and for state positions. There are all sort of proposed lawsuits in place already that may affect what those final maps will be ultimately when voters go to the polls later on this year for primary elections and then in November for the general election here in 2022. Are the districts that were a part of West Bloomfield and surrounding communities, how have those, at least as the maps are currently proposed, how have those been affected by this redistricting? Have they changed significantly?
Well, one large change that has happened is West Bloomfield is now what's called the community of interest. So where we used to be separated into two different areas or three different areas, we're now considered, we're now considered one area or one community of interest. So you saw our U.S. Congressional District and Michigan House District went from 2 districts to 1. Our state Senate district was already 1 district, and our commissioners went from 3 to 2. So you did see, but we're expanded. Now instead of broken into the one side of West Bloomfield and another, we're now one, West Bloomfield, Orchard Lake, Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake.
And so with where the maps stand right now, because of the lawsuits, because they're not entirely finalized at this moment in time, where do those districts stand at this moment in time? Are we still operating under the previous congressional districts and federal congressional districts here in Oakland County and throughout the state of Michigan, or are these new maps that the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission have passed through, are those now official?
Well, there are challenges to them, so we are waiting on a final determination. However, we expect that we will have that final determination by April 4th, which is the statutory deadline that we need to have those determinations. Now, our understanding is that they are going quickly through to the Supreme Court, that they are aware that they have a deadline to comply with. So we're operating from that perspective now. Now, our districts, most of what's going to change our districts at this point is there's a statute that requires that no precinct be larger than 2,999 registered active voters, and we have a few precincts that are pushing that limit. So we will see some changes based on that number. Most of the changes we were able to do by keeping voters, we're adding 1 precinct, and we were able to keep the vast majority of voters in their same polling location, even if there was a precinct change. So we really did our best to make it as simple for the voters as possible. There will be some minor changes, but most of those changes have to do with the size of the precincts and staying in compliance with statute from our perspective versus the redistricting.
So as a local clerk, a township, a city, a village clerk, when these changes are undergoing, or when this does become official, and it could be with as short of notice as that April 4th deadline, or maybe even a little bit afterward, depending on where the Supreme Court cases go in this regard, what are the next steps that are taken by our clerk's offices to then not only inform the voters of where they will be voting, but also to make those new arrangements for what ultimately will be a slightly different operation than in previous elections with the implications of new districts?
Well, around April 4th, by that deadline, people should watch their mailboxes. Every registered voter in West Bloomfield will receive a new voter ID card, and that ID card will have their new districts on it. So watch your mailboxes for that. That's an important part of it. The local clerks are involved in the process. It comes from the state, the county gets involved, and the locals get involved in helping apply it to the qualified voter file. We do anticipate that there will be a little bit of buckle up, put your seatbelt on, and we've got to get cracking and short times frame, which is what happened in 2020 with a lot of legislation that came at us last minute. So we are clerks, it's what we do, and we know how to make it happen and comply with deadlines. So that's what we will plan on. But I do think it's important that everyone watch their mailbox, because that new voter ID card will have all the information. If you have questions, call the clerk's office, but we worked really hard to make sure that people could stay in their same polling location so that it really minimized the confusion that we would anticipate.
We're joined by West Bloomfield Township Clerk Debbie Binder on the MegaCast. You can learn more information in West Bloomfield specifically from the clerk's office about how the redistricting may affect where you're voting, or may affect congressional districts in the West Bloomfield area by visiting the West Bloomfield Township website at wbtownship.org. And so Debbie, something that became critical in the 2020 elections was the availability of absentee voting to all voters across the board. And is there still availability for residents to be able to add themselves to the permanent absent voter list at this time? And how can they go about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And all that takes is a phone call or an email to the office to be added to the permanent absent voter application list. I do want to clarify that it's an application list, and a permanent absent voter list does not mean you automatically get a ballot. It means you automatically get an application. You don't get a ballot unless we receive a signature matched application.
And so what goes into that application? What should people be prepared for if they do decide to request that application from their local clerk's office? What information do they need to provide in order to get themselves assured that they will receive an absentee ballot for the upcoming election?
Well, with Proposal 3 of 2018, we have no excuse absentee voting. So where you used to have to select one of the reasons you were requesting an absentee ballot, you don't now. You can just request to vote by mail, right? Absentee ballot or by mail. So what the voter would do is send in that application with their signature. We match the signature, verify it against the signature we have on file through the qualified voter file. And if the signature matches, that voter would be sent a ballot. So if they have any questions about getting that application, you just need to call my office, and we can add you to the permanent absent voter application list, so you will get that application in the mail. You can also call and request one, and that application is also available on our website. And there is also a generic state of Michigan application that's available on the state of Michigan's website. One important place to call voter attention to, Tyler, is the Voter Information Center. And if someone searches Michigan Voter Information Center, they'll be able to contact reference the state's website and get a lot of information. In addition to requesting an absentee ballot or registering to vote, they can learn more about which district and their precinct. And even during an election, they can get a sample copy of their ballot. Makes it a lot easier when you go into the polls, and that's how I do it. I actually get a sample ballot, which you can get online, or you can go to your clerk's office and request one for your precinct, and then you can go to your polling location with your sample ballot in hand, ready to vote for who your choices are.
And you can get access to the Voter Information Center, the Michigan Voter Information Center, by navigating the Michigan Secretary of State's website by visiting michigan.gov/SOS. That's michigan.gov/SOS. We're joined by West Bloomfield Township Clerk Debbie Binder on the MegaCast. Of course, as we are approaching the primary elections coming up in August and the general election in November, it is every election should be considered a big election, but it's a big election year here in the state of Michigan with a highly anticipated gubernatorial election coming up in November. Those primaries, of course, as I said, in August. And that means there's going to be continued need, as there always is, for election workers, previous and new ones, to come in. What is the process for people, if they want to become an election worker in West Bloomfield or in their local area, to go about doing that, and what can they expect to experience as an election worker?
Well, it's what I can tell you is people get involved, and the same people get involved year after year. Everyone complains it's a really long day, and everyone comes back. They enjoy the experience. You understand the magnitude of what you're involved in. It's really rewarding. Even when it's exhausting, you know that you're contributing to something that's really important. To become an election worker, you would contact your clerk's office. We have an application, and I'm sure every municipality has an application to apply for election workers. We were fortunate in 2020 that we really focused on recruiting in 2020. We were able to recruit 300 new election workers. Now, we do anticipate that a lot of them were inspired by 2020, and we're not sure what our retention will be on that. So we are always looking to replenish our election workers. It's an important, you can't have too few, so it's important to keep that, that talent pool active. So it's as easy as contacting your local clerk, getting involved. If you want to get involved in West Bloomfield, you do not have to be a resident. You can work in any municipality. So I would recommend, if it's something you're thinking about doing, number one, you'll find it rewarding. And number two, with all of the concern lately about the safety and security of elections, it's a really good way to see the process in action and be reassured at what you're experiencing when you watch what actually goes on election day and the checks and balances in place. So I encourage anyone who's interested in getting involved to call my office and sign up to work. You will be you'll enjoy it, you'll feel it's rewarding, and you'll be reassured. It's a great opportunity. And for our youngins, I like to tell them it's a phenomenal resume and college app job. So we have increased the number of youngins we have working, and it just gives them a great opportunity. Again, that kind of public service on your resume or your college app is really important.
And what's the time commitment for serving as an election worker? Because there's a lot of training that goes into it. There are several training sessions that are required by the state for local municipalities to hold for their election workers. So if someone is interested, but they need to carve out the time in their schedule, what can they expect to be that kind of commitment for working as an election worker?
Okay, it's 1 or 2 trainings depending on the position, and we do try to offer the trainings at a variety of times, days, nights, and we even do weekends, because we do want to have some of our college students who are great. We want them to have the opportunity to come back, so we do offer training on weekends to make it more accessible for those college students. So there is a variety of choices. Again, it's 1 or 2 2-hour trainings. Election day is the long day. Election day typically starts, if you're in a precinct, at 6 a.m. and goes until 8:30 to 10 o'clock, I would say. And if you're in the AV counting board, your start time can be anywhere from 6 a.m. till 10 a.m., but you'll go until the counting is done. So it doesn't have a determined end time. The big difference, I tell people, is if you can be away from your phone. In an AV counting board, you are a sequestered board, meaning you cannot have any electronics there at all and cannot communicate. So if you are attached to your phone, you can't. You would probably rather work in a precinct. But if you want a little bit more sedentary opportunity, working in a AV counting board provides that. We have people that like, they choose the way that they like to work. And during COVID, we've had people who were longtime precinct workers or polling location workers who chose to work the AV counting board. And one of those actually became the co-chair of the AV counting board because he enjoyed it so much. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. We have opportunity for leadership for people who are looking to get involved at a leadership level. And I am always available to have a conversation with somebody about what's the best fit for them, which of the locations. But I promise anyone who does get involved will find it a good experience.
We're joined by Debbie Binder, West Bloomfield Township Clerk, joining us on the MegaCast. If you'd like to learn more information about becoming an election worker and serving in West Bloomfield specifically, you can call the clerk's office at 248-451-4848. That's 248-451-4848. And Debbie, among the services that are provided at your office as well for West Bloomfield residents are passport application services. They have been provided in the past. There was some delay or some shutdown of those services during the pandemic for a variety of reasons. Are those services back in operation, and what are those services that are provided by the township?
Yeah, we have been back in service since last February, so we are offering them. One difference is that we made them by appointment now, which has helped for both parties, actually. But we are booking a month out for those appointments. Sometimes there's cancellation, so it's worth a call. If you have imminent travel plans and we can't meet those needs, you would have to contact the Detroit the Department of State in Detroit to expedite your passport. We are what's called a passport acceptance agency. We are not the Department of State. That means we are a flow-through for passports that go to the Department of State. We can process kids who are going into their adult passport and first-time passports for adults. We cannot do an adult renewal. However, where it's beneficial to come see us sometimes anyhow is that we have all the papers available, we have passport photos available, and we can ensure that your application is done correctly so that the Department of State doesn't send it back to you with any kind of an error. When you leave the clerk's office, if you're sending in an adult renewal, you leave with a packet ready to go to the post office or put in an envelope and send to the Department of State. That being said, if there's any questions, I would recommend calling my office. We can also discuss with you if you know that you have travel dates and what the timeframes are. Please know that the Department of State is quoting much longer times, in part related to the delays and unexpected delays in mail and in the post office. So you have to factor all of those delayed times in when you're applying for your passport. Do not wait. If you know that you may travel, get your passport as quickly as possible. Don't wait till last minute. You will have a much harder time making it happen now.
Debbie, just lastly, before we let you go, any other messages from the clerk's office at this time for West Bloomfield residents, or in a general sense for people across the board here in Oakland County that may be in need of some common services from their local clerk?
We just want people to feel as reassured as possible about voting and that their vote matters. There's a lot of information on TV that I think causes some, consternation. If you have questions, call your clerk's office. Talk to your clerk. I'm available to anybody who wants to ask questions. There's a lot of information that we can share that might, reassure people who are concerned about what they're seeing. It's a very safe and secure process. I vote at the polls because I like the experience, not because I'm concerned that my absentee ballot doesn't count. During the pandemic year, I very happily voted by absentee ballot. I will likely, once the pandemic's over, go back to the polls just because I like the energy, not because I don't trust the process. So I encourage anyone who has questions, please get in touch with your clerk. We are the best source of the correct information. I am the president, as I'm not sure if you know, Tyler, of the Oakland County Clerks Association, where I serve with a board of very bipartisan board, and any of my clerks would be happy to talk to groups to reassure them about the voting process. So it's time that the clerks are united, making sure people understand.
And a great way to understand the process and all the checks and balances that are in place is to become an election worker. And all of our municipalities are always in great need for those workers in big election years and high traffic election years such as 2020 or 2024 for presidential elections, or in the midterms as well, and all of those in between. So Debbie, thank you for joining us, telling us more about those opportunities and more information as we get ready for a big election year here in the state of Michigan.
Thank you, Tyler, very much. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
You as well.